Alex Kiria from Uganda, known as Alex. No, he is Alex Kiria, but known as
Saba Saba.
Saba Saba. How are you, Saba Saba?
Good. How you doing?
So, how did you decide to name Saba Saba when you have such a beautiful Alex Kiria name? What happened there?
Well, Alex, first of all, is a colonial name, so I don't like that name. But my mother named me Alex,
Mm-hmm.
and Saba Saba. I'm an old soul. I'll
Mm-hmm.
call myself an old soul. I was born in 1977, and seven has always been my lucky number. And Saba means seven, so I named myself Saba Saba because of the regime, the Idi Amin regime. The weapon that chased Idi Amin out of Uganda was called the Saba Saba because it was a multiple rocket launcher that could bring out 7 missiles. So since I have a musical background as an artist, that's how fast my words were moving. I was that weapon. When I get on stage, I'm that weapon. When I speak, I'm that weapon. The Saba Saba. Yes.
And I'm very lucky that many years back in Uganda, I have seen you on stage. I've seen that weapon. And that is actually
Okay.
how we met many, many years back.
Yeah.
But today we are talking about film. And thank you very much to honor the invitation to attend
Yeah.
our Zoom interview for the European Film Festival 2020. This year it's not going to be a physical festival, otherwise you would have
Yeah.
come to Zimbabwe. But now
Yeah.
we had to move because obviously because of Corona, we had to move to a more digital platform. So now
Mhm.
I'm speaking to you not, or we are not meeting in Zimbabwe, but we are talking, actually, we have met in Uganda. You are
Yeah.
now sitting in Los Angeles. I'm sitting in Germany. We are recording
Yeah.
this interview for the Zimbabwean Film Festival. That's our new global world, I think.
Yeah, and this is I would say my last interview I had that connected to film that was in 2006 when we released the documentary Diamonds in the Rough that talks about two individuals that spread the Ugandan hip hop music from we traveled all over Africa under United Nations doing the music, and we had a filmographer that followed us everywhere, and we ended up in the US doing the same thing. So that's the last time I actually was only talking about film and music. So now it's different. I'm gonna talk about film,
Mhm.
and just to let everybody know, I'm still a film scholar. I'm always a student, and I'm always learning. And yeah, and I'm happy to share what I've learned along the way. Yeah.
That's very great. Thank you for that. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about your, I know you have done so many things in
Mhm.
41 years.
Yeah.
You're not
Thank
a
you.
young man anymore.
No, I'm not.
But I know that maybe you could just talk a little bit about your journey and what
Mhm.
I think would be also interesting. How did you actually decided to go to America? What brought you to Los Angeles? If you could just give us a little bit of a little background about who you are and why you are sitting in Los Angeles and not in Kampala.
Again, it goes back to my music. We I come from a group called Bataka Underground. Bataka, which means natives of the land. So we were doing conscious music mostly against the politics that's going on in Uganda. Even before it is what it is right now, it's actually getting worse every other day. So that's what I was doing, and then I was picked by United Nations to represent Uganda to go to South Africa, and they call it the African Hip Hop Conference that had a lot of artists from all over the globe, and we were all in South Africa doing music for a change. And that's why I met a journalist from Toronto who wrote about me in Toronto papers. And somebody saw the newspaper in the US. And that's how they invited me to the Trinity Hip Hop Conference in the US. So when I moved here, I came here already. We were doing that movie of me traveling the world doing that. So we started pitching the same movie, Diamonds in the Rough, all over the US. So that's how I came to the US to show our documentary Diamonds in the Rough, the Ugandan story, which is on Amazon. Yeah. So that's how I came here.
So the music brought you to America
But
initially.
yeah, music brought me to America. But again, going back to that, I've always been a storyteller. I love storytelling. So I've been storytelling through music my whole time. But the more I attended festivals about film, and we won a lot of awards in the US for film. So I was like, well, if they love this story, then I got a lot to tell you about where I'm from. So that's where the whole concept came from. And when I moved here, I joined school. Before that, I traveled to a lot of universities, from Harvard University to Syracuse University, speaking about language barrier and language and tradition, the African tradition, the Ugandan politics, everything. So people could ask me all the time, hey, what university did you go to? I'm like, nah, man, this is just general knowledge. I didn't go to any school. I just speak as my grandmother or grandfather taught me. Yeah.
So that brings me to a question. Not everyone is familiar with the hip hop music, maybe from Uganda, but I think you have been very active in advocating that musicians use their traditional or their own language, not traditional, but their mother tongue, so to speak, because English often is obviously not a mother tongue, and you are part of the Luga Flow movement, and I think maybe that also speaks to film. These are always questions we have. Should we actually do more in our mother tongue, or is everything has to be global? I mean, European movies, we see that very often. They they hit the global stage, but they're not in English, right? I mean, how is that for the African continent? Is it actually important to make films in English in order to reach a global stage, or is it also very fine to work with languages we speak?
On that, I'm very persistent in how I do things. So when I moved to America, I got signed to a label called North Star, and I was with Sugar Hill Gang and a lot of other rappers in New York. And the whole concept why they wanted to sign me, they wanted me to start rapping in English. And I had to tell the management that I'm not going to do that. I have to represent where I'm from, because this is who I am. So if I start doing what they're doing, I'm not going to be like them. They're always going to be winning. But if I tell them where I'm from and represent my culture and tradition on how I look at things, maybe that will be different. Eventually, I was with the label for 4 years. They got me a lot of shows. They got me a lot of gigs. They put me in a lot of important places, from meeting the president of the US, Bill Clinton, through the projects we were doing, and meeting a lot of important people. But they did not put my message forward of what I was representing. So I ended up leaving the label after my contract. I did not put my contract back because I wanted to keep it the way it is. So I became an independent artist and started doing my own music still in my own town. And I've been doing this for the past 15, 20 years. And I've got placement in movies that are American movies on HBO, whereby they place my music and I'm singing in my mother tongue. And my music is in a Russian movie. So that was my whole concept, how I really got into film. I'm like, I'm gonna pitch my music until I get it right. So I joined a publishing company here in Los Angeles, and they taught me how to do publishing. And then I went into film school and started sound engineering and started sound design to know how do I use my music so I can use it for a visual. So this is me transitioning from getting into film. I want my music in film. So I got my music in a lot of documentaries in Europe too. I got a lot of music that I put in Europe, in your country as well. And then I got a lot of projects here. So that's how I got into the whole process of pitching my music. And my music was not in English at all. It was in my mother tongue. And recently I saw Get Out. I don't know if you know that movie, Get Out. I saw Get Out, and it's 10 o'clock. One thing, oh my God, I don't know what that's me. One thing that shocked me about that movie was the soundtrack of the movie was a Kenyan artist singing in Swahili. Sikiliza, 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 sikiliza. Throughout, it's a horror movie, it's a scary movie, and you're listening to the soundtrack being an African artist singing in his own tongue. That teaches you something. That's what we're supposed to be going in the next coming years, whereby we do not only focus. If I'm doing a 80s movie, I shouldn't be having American music. How about having any kind of music on a horror movie and I put maybe a African song that has the same kind of template that moves with that? So that's how I look at everything. Yeah.
And for me, it sounds, it's really interesting and inspiring, because you could have taken a very quick road to fame by signing that. Actually, what you have chosen to take another road.
Yes.
And to stay true to what you believe in and what the course of your movement is. That's really inspirational. I hope many people will listen to that, because it's sometimes easier to go for the money.
Yeah, it's easier. So there's a lot of changes. This is a very good time for film. This is a good time for music. It's a good time for everything. When you watch Ballers, it's a TV show, because I work in TV. It's a TV show, and I'm shocked every time I watch it that they have a lot of African music within Ballers, which is talking about American lifestyle. But why is this happening? Because it's our time to shine. This is our time to tell our stories. We can tell our stories through music. We can tell our stories through film. We can tell our stories through art. It's our time because there's no more content in America. They don't have any more. They have to look elsewhere, period.
And that
Yeah.
look towards the African continent?
Yeah. They have to look elsewhere. The African continent has got a lot of, we have a lot of content that has not even been touched. We have a lot of stories that have not even been touched. We have a lot of everything that has not even been focused on. Mm-hmm. I work in film, and sometimes I'll be on a concept and it's the same concept somebody almost did the last time. I worked on a film, I worked on a TV show, it's called The Newsroom. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
You should check it out. It was a very, very nice show. And they asked me, we are doing a Ugandan story because they knew I was Ugandan. Can you write it for us? I wrote about 3 pages for The Newsroom, which is a big show on TV here. I think it was on Showtime or something. And what made it so funny that they had somebody making kawunga, you know, ugali, the posho?
Yeah.
They had somebody, they brought somebody special to make that posho, and they paid him like $2,000 just to make that posho because they didn't know anybody that could make that. And then they had me and a few other guys to be the liaison of how the set should look like. So these are things that now they have to ask an African artist, does this look all right for us? Should the latrines be here or should the latrines be here? What do you think? And I'm out there and I'm like, yeah, this is how we should do everything. But why should they be telling our story?
So
and didn't even get the credit for it.
So that means you are kind of hitting a nail where you're saying, where is our content coming from? Why is it not
coming from exactly. They do a lot of stories here. I've been on a lot of stories and they're talking about Somalia, but there's no Somalian writer involved and there's no Somalian artist involved. I just happen to be there and I'm working on a project. I'm like, they would have got some Africans. We got some Africans here that can write this better on how you want it. So they set up a whole set that looks like Africa, but it does not. And then we as Africans, we watch them, we're proud. And for me, I'm like, nah, it would have been way better than that if you actually give a job to an African writer or an African artist that can tell that story better than the way you want it to be told, and don't use other people to tell the story. That's not right. Yes.
What I'm taking from that, of course, or obviously, it's that awareness of producers and filmmakers, maybe in America, to kind of recognize that gap.
Yeah.
At the same time, it might also be a question of how can African filmmakers, writers, script writers have access to that market? How could that gap be kind of filled?
Oh, well, that's going to be a hard one. And even just speaking of African Americans within America, the people that act certain roles were not even African American. Like the Simpsons, they have a character in there that was acted by somebody who's not Indian. And they have somebody who acts a part that was not even African American, but it's somebody of a different race. So there's a lot of changes that need to happen just within the US. Then it can translate as well to other places from India to Africa to everywhere. So it's been going on for so many years. So I think it's about time for our stories to be told and us telling our own stories so we don't get anybody telling those stories for us. So how do we get into it? We keep writing. Mm-hmm. We keep writing because they don't have stories. They have to come for our stories. I'm not going to write an American story, but I know if I wrote an African story, it would be the best story you would ever read. If I put time into it and put all the energy behind it, it will be the best story you ever read. We have the most amazing stories in Africa, but the only problem we don't have the infrastructure and the resources to make that story what it is. I've seen stories here that you read the whole concept and you're like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have the oomph, and then when you start making it, it starts making sense because they put a lot of energy to it and they put a lot to it to make sure that you like it. So why don't we do that to African stories as well?
And do you feel that sometimes there's also a problem in recognizing that they're actually interesting stories? I often have that conversation with filmmakers, because often I feel, I mean, I know that you are into producing music videos as well. Often I feel, for example, if we stay in the genre of hip hop, that very often music videos which are coming from the African continent are very much leaned towards the American hip hop style. Is that actually needed? Is that just to enter a market?
It's not needed, but I still can't beat the hustle, because the new generation from globally, everybody is focused on what America looks like. So they do the best they can, and the picture looks like that. But what I love the most, that they always make it look as good as the American picture. So I don't even watch American videos anymore. I only watch African videos, and they're so beautiful. So what I take out of that is African artists are developing their own things and trying to beat what Americans have. So that's the part I look at. I'm like, that's a hard video. I can put that video with Chris Brown's video. I can put that video with Jay-Z's video. So that's how, because that's how we start. You come in, and how do you say when you rob a thief and do better than he does, or something like that. So I would say it's the only way we can do it, is do it better than they do it, and then we can start telling our own stories.
So you think that would be the entry point to kind of match the quality of what we have known from America, but then sometimes I feel, I don't know, often
the truth is I don't like it, but I can't beat it either. Because I watch the videos, I'm like, it's so American, but I can't separate the two. But which one would I prefer? I'll prefer if it was all African. But there's still a lot of videos that I've seen that are strictly beautiful and can compete with what America's got, but they all have an African concept completely, like from the coloring to everything. Yeah, so there's a lot of those. So there's a lot of filmmakers that are actually doing it, from South Africa to Uganda to Nigeria. So we have a lot of stories, because Africa is changing too. We have our own lifestyle, and everything is different, and we look as beautiful, and they want to be us now. Like everybody in America wants to be African now. And so, that's over right now.
So does it mean, in terms of your own journey, being a Ugandan in America or Los Angeles, what does that mean? I mean, do you celebrate that? Are you often perceived as, you know, he is not from here? Or is it an added value because you are from the African continent? It can be also very sexy, it's very trendy, or how is your experience?
It's different. It's how you take it. But I've been in so many I've been on so many platforms just because I'm an African artist. So it has its advantages, and it also has its disadvantages. But we need to just tell our stories. We need our stories to get into the right media places, so we can also be heard. So that's the thing that we need to work on. So right now, Netflix, I think, has got a lot of Nigerian movies. I'm like, yes, that's beautiful, but we have a lot of other countries that have a lot of stories that need to be heard. So that's what I want to see more. If we can see more of, I want to hear the Zimbabwe story. I want to hear, because all I know about Zimbabwe is the history they've gone through, and Mugabe. I want everything else with it, from the Zimbabweans. Can't even say it. Yes.
No, and you definitely, once we are in 2021, then obviously we expect you to pay us a visit and come to Zimbabwe.
Oh, I would really love to do that, because I would love to see anything coming from the southern part, because the struggle is completely different, and we need those stories to be told. We need those stories. We do need those stories a lot. Yes.
And in terms of going back to the craftsmanship of filmmaking, many filmmakers are self-taught. Yeah. And not only the filmmaker, we don't even talk about art department, lighting. I mean, there's a whole huge behind the scene. It's we always talk about the filmmaker, but really we are talking of how many people on the set. I don't know. When you see the credits in the movie, it's like incredible. But often,
well, let me see. Well, that's a very interesting pace, and that's what we don't have. I was in Uganda shooting a documentary, and I needed a food stylist. And somebody was like, "What do you mean by a food stylist?" I'm like, "I need somebody who can design food for a set." And I had to get an artist, and I got an artist who's not a food stylist to design food, because we don't have capabilities. We don't have those kind of people. Like, I'm a food stylist. So when it comes to Africa, people need to know that in the film industry, it's not only about the camera. You love film and you love the camera, but actually that's not what you want to be. You may be an art designer, so you can be in the art department and you deal with how the set looks like. You may be a fashion guy and you know what they're supposed to be wearing in the 60s in Zimbabwe. So there's a lot of departments that you can do. You can be a prop guy. So right now I like AK. The reason I like AK from Uganda is because AK is out there collecting all the architects of the past years, the past 25 years. So I would love the same thing to happen to Zimbabwe filmmakers, where you have somebody who's just a prop guy and is out there collecting all that history that you've had all those years from all those shots. I love those weird shots that Mugabe used to wear. They used to look funny to me. I liked them. So you get all that history. So you have a history when you start shooting a project about those times. You have the history to tell with the costume, with the props, to the house design. There should be somebody doing. There's a lot of jobs. A location scout who's out there to look at who knows the right location. If we say we want to shoot a movie that was shot in the 1940s, whose house are we going to get? So you need all these. There's all these departments that are huge that you can go into and get. I was watching a video from South Africa, and these guys were driving BMWs, spinning and spinning around. To me, I'm like, these guys, if they came here, they'll be getting a lot of jobs on the stunts they were doing in those cars. So there's a lot of jobs for Africans, and we already know what to do. We don't even need to go to school for certain things. It's just easy. Yeah.
And in terms of your experience, as maybe, I mean, you have gone to school in the United States in order to kind of polish your craftsmanship. Often on the continent, that might not be possible. I mean, we have self-taught filmmakers or practitioners all over the world. But is there anything you could highlight or give kind of a hint how people can improve their craft in the absence of being able to acquire an educational degree?
There's a I would say YouTube to some people is something that teaches a lot of things. You just type in anything you want to know. You just type anything. You're like, oh, I want to know about sound design. It will give you all the information you need. And the other thing is just craft whatever you're into. It depends on what you want to do, and just keep doing it and doing it. Like right here in LA, I produce an event. It's called Head Wraps in the Park, about women wearing their crown, head wraps on their head. And we've done that for 5 years, and we usually hold a crowd of 5,000 people in the middle of Los Angeles. But within that show, I have over 300 to 400. We have over 300 to 400 vendors that come through. And out of the 300 to 400 vendors, we have a lot of people doing different things. So my designers that I get for my movies, I actually get them from Head Wraps in the Park, because it's a lot of fashion designers. There's a lot of people doing different things. So you can start doing small events that bring people together, and those events can even make you have your team that you need. Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do. Yeah, if I answer the question right.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, because I think this is what we did. That is information we also need to share and see how we can collectively improve our skill set. I think that's for the.
I do that.
That's why we would like to invite you at one point. The same for, I mean, you know, your brother AK, who came last year to host a masterclass. This year he will do it virtually. So now new possibilities, and it would be very interesting if you could also share some of your knowledge. But another question I would like to ask you. We have actually talked about your recent projects. I know you might not be able to talk about everything, but could you kind of share a little, because you're doing projects in the film sphere, not classical music, I think, or maybe also, I don't know if you can share some projects you're doing in Uganda, whatever you feel you could share with us to give us a little bit of a hint of what it is you are currently working on would be really amazing.
I can't share much, but I was in Uganda last year shooting. I think it's one of my biggest projects that I've ever done, and it's I think the best project I've ever been involved in. It's called Transforming Garbage. So we fused agriculture and recycling together, and we had to go to a 200-acre farm to create this story, and that's the story we created. So I had an Academy nominated an Emmy winner with me. She was a makeup artist, so she came with me, and we created this art. So it's an art through recycling and living art. So that's the project we did, and we shot a whole documentary about that. And I don't want to say much because we are pitching it to different places right now. So I think that's something that I'm really proud of. And before that, I'm working on my album, which is Cup of Coffee with Idi Amin. And there's a short film with that as well. So that's the other project that I'm working on that talks about my history as a young kid and growing up in the regime of Idi Amin and how I stand with that. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. So when and how can we follow you, and how can we find out about the great projects you are going to do in the future?
Right now I'm on Instagram. You can do Saba Saba Music. That's my Instagram page. And on YouTube, I think it's the same thing, Saba Saba Music. On YouTube, you can do that, or Saba Saba UG. And where else? Yeah, and that's it. You can get me if you just type Saba Saba Music. You get all the other information about me. Everything is out there. Yes. Yeah.
And is there anything we have not touched on and you would like to talk about?
I don't know. I'm thinking because let me see my book here, because I was trying to see if I can talk about a lot of different things. I'll talk about my Ugandan brother called Isaac Nabwana. Isaac Nabwana. He's a filmmaker from Uganda. He does movies for $200.
Mm-hmm.
He gets $200 and does a whole movie. So when you guys can, just go out there and look for Who Killed Captain Alex. You're gonna laugh your head out.
The guys, I don't know, where do they live again? In which area?
They land up. Their city is called Wakalihood. So instead of Hollywood, it's called Wakalihood. So if you want to be a filmmaker, this guy uses only $200. But when you start watching his movies, I think he's one of my best filmmakers right now. When you watch his movies, you'll never watch anything else.
But there's also maybe an interesting point to make here, because he has a interesting way of promoting and selling his movies, because it's always the question how to make money with your productions, and he is very proactive about it, if I understand.
Yeah, he makes the movies, and we have a lot of small theaters which we call Vibanda in Uganda, where people go and watch movies. He takes his movies to the Vibanda, and people come and actually pay and watch the movies. Sometimes even sells out. Where they're like, hey man, we done, we sold out. His movies are really funny. Just look for Wakalihood. And I was fortunate enough to they actually HBO Viceland contacted me to use my music in one of his films.
Okay.
And that was interesting, and I made a lot of money off that. And then I'm like, who the hell is this guy? So when I went back to Uganda, I'm like, yo, I need to meet you. So I went and met Wakalihood, and we talked about a lot of things, and we're gonna work on a few things maybe in the future. He's a very amazing artist. So he got picked. He has his projects on HBO. He's got his project on Viceland, but they cost only $200. So all I'm saying is, don't be out there and say, I don't have this and I don't have that. With the new technology right now, you can do anything. YouTube, you can say, I meet a lot of influencers here in the US that are friends of mine, and they're doing videos on how to pack clothing, how to pack and move to another house. And this guy has got millions of views, and they earn off that. So you can earn off music. You can earn off your content by just posting on YouTube. There's a lot of platforms, so there's no way we can say we can do what we can do. You can talk about the health sector in Zimbabwe. You can talk about the health sector in Uganda. You can talk about the traditions, the food, or anything, and just post it. There's always an audience that wants to see it. So all I can say to filmmakers out there, start small. You don't need to wait for a budget. Start with what you can. You can even start with your phone. I've recorded a project with my phone, and I'll be putting it online soon. So you can start with whatever you got. You never know what you get. There's a lot of videos I've seen that didn't make sense, and they got a lot of people watching them, and whoever it is earning money off that. So there's a lot of ways this is the first time you can be anything you want to be, but it's how you create your content to make sure that people are going to like it. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. That's
Yes.
very inspirational. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah, so I
And I
was looking
also
at it.
know that the filmmaker you mentioned, he created his very own style.
Yes.
It is not kind of any copy, and it's actually, when you watch it, it's unbelievable.
It's just his style, and you've got musicians coming from Europe just to come and work with him because of how he does his stuff. From his edit, everything is just weird, but people like it, and that's how you become your own person by
Yeah.
creating your own content. And with Africa, we have that already. We just need to start believing in ourselves. You imagine if Africans started shooting their own stuff, and they don't care about will it make it on Netflix, and you just start shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, it will be something else. If we just started shooting and we just shoot, you don't care if it's good or not, just shoot.
Mm-hmm.
It will change your life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's creating content, and with the global possibilities we have, I mean, the world in that sphere, the digital sphere, the world becomes small. Obviously, there's a lot of content, but at one point, if your content is different and unique, it can still travel the world. And I think this is what you are saying.
Exactly, because the reason why you don't see a lot of my stuff out there, because I want to be at a certain point, but this year I'm done. I'm ready to release what I have. I have a lot of content that I've been doing, and I'm like, oh, it's not good enough. I need to do more. And why? Because I work in the film industry, so I'm always watching. I'm like, damn, I think what I did is not going to work because what these guys are doing. So I go back to the writing board and rewrite everything. So that's what I've been doing. And now I'm learning that actually I know way too much for me to keep everything to myself. So I'm ready to start exploring. And if you don't like it, I'll do another. If you don't like it, tell me what's wrong. What should I do better? So I'm okay with criticism, because I'm still a student and I'm still a scholar. So I can say I'm a filmmaker, but I'm more like a scholar filmmaker. Like I'm learning every day. I'm working on projects right now. The best show I worked on was P Valley, which I did last year. That was an interesting project. So I work on a lot of projects, but every project I leave with a lesson learned. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Now I do. Yeah, get up every morning with a new idea or with something new to learn. That's how I take it. Learn
Great,
something new every day. Yeah.
great. Saba Saba, is there anything else on your paper?
Mhm. I think the most thing I was talking about, because you were saying what can people do about the income. So
Yeah.
I was talking about that. You can be a if you're a musician and you want to get into film, you can be a sound designer, or you can start writing music for film. And then I talked about food stylists. You can be a food stylist if you know how to design food for set. And you can also do voiceovers and everything. There's a lot of things that we can do as artists that can benefit us, so you're not only focusing on what everybody thinks film is, because film has got a lot of different sections that you can get into. Yeah, so that's the part I was trying to get into. Oh, a film journalist, because we don't have a lot of those. How many do you have in Zimbabwe, or do we have any journalists that can elaborate films?
I mean, we do have, but
Mhm.
it's a very limited number, and
Yeah,
there's very little professional critics, I would say. Yeah.
exactly. So those things are needed. Even same thing in Uganda, we do not have a lot of music critics.
Mm-hmm.
The people that critique the music actually do not understand what we're doing. So that's the problem I have with my own country. And I wanted to be that guy, but I can't be everything. I'm the artist, and now I'm the one critiquing my own music. It does not make sense. So we don't have those. So we need to start getting those puzzles. You get the puzzles of creating a whole empire or a whole industry. You start with those small things. You start building from critic for film, from having the biggest festival designer or everything. There's a lot of things we can do that involve the industry, and at the end of the day, you have a whole industry.
Yes.
Yeah, my plan right now in Uganda is going back and trying to start my own sound stage. I already got the land. So all I need to do is we're designing the design, and I have a sound stage where we can create different sounds for film projects. So when any projects comes to Uganda, you have to look for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you're also talking there a little bit about creating your own vision, making a plan,
Exactly.
working
Exactly.
over years to attain
Exactly.
your bigger vision, because that does come overnight.
Yeah, and the other thing that I saw when I was in Uganda, you get there and you like, I need a filmmaker. How many out there? I need a camera. Who's got a camera? Like, I need this. So we need to have those templates already laid out for any person, not being me. So if somebody's coming from the UK and he wants to come and shoot something, he's supposed to have a creative handbook right here, and it's going to tell them everything they need to get. So these are things that we need, whereby you come in and you're like, you know who's going to work on your location, you know who's going to get you the prop, you know where you're going to get an art designer, you know where you're going to get a wardrobe person, you know all these things. So we need these things to be in place, and those are all employments and jobs that people can have, and you just know where everything is. You need somebody to be a liaison to have everything you need at a certain point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one project we have in Africa that's a little bit, yeah.
Saba Saba, we are coming almost to the end of the interview. I know today we are talking about film, but me as one of your oldest fans, being
Yeah.
from the beginning, almost, I don't know how many years back in Uganda,
Yeah.
is there a way I can ask you for a little Luga flow?
Oh no.
Just like that we can get a little impression.
No, I don't know,
like
man.
3 lines, like just for me.
No, not for you, not now. I'm not. Yeah, because I have to really get into it. Because I was on a different level right now. So I think the next time I'll give you that.
Okay, I was really hoping I could just get like a little bit of something, no? Okay. I'm really trying hard.
Yonga wansubiza okulunga kantukire ku nsonga gye bagamba ekwatakumu abasinga ndi kubapinga abatulemesa okupanga newonya takuliko nekyabeera akulanga ndaba ekisinga ekyokola kweyunga bwetuga kutubonga n'olugero twalusanga naggalya wamu mukuluma ennyamege gasinga kati ngenda kubazinga okuyimba n'okupanga nina okulanga bino si bya muganga yagala makakasa nti wane waffe mu mawanga okola ekyakabi alaba kuyita mujinga mbuba wenga bwefudezzinga ekinanamu mukaaga nga zinyokera ekatonga abasinga bagiranga yakwekonga asinsonga.
Wow, thank you.
You got me, but yeah, I wasn't ready for that. Yeah.
So what was that about?
I'm talking about unity. Like we need to work together as a people, and and a lot of things to make things better. Yeah.
Very beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sebo.
Nyabo, neyanziza.
Kale, Sula Burunji.
Now it's Bulunji.
I hope my Luganda is still a little bit intact, but I have to practice it a bit more.
Okay, it doesn't look bad. It's really pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Thank you very much, Saba Saba, known as Saba Saba. Of course, we are speaking to Alex Kiria from Uganda via Los Angeles. Thank you so much for your time you have given to the European Film Festival, and we are really excited to be speaking to you, and I hope 2021 will be our year and we will reunite in Zimbabwe.
Looking forward to that.
Looking
forward to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.
Have a good one too. Bye-bye.